Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Betterhumanology podcast. Today we have Dawn Fletcher from Mentality WOD. She's been on the podcast a few times, so you guys might be familiar, but I always love my conversations with Dawn, and to be honest, I think it's because we're a lot alike. We have a lot of the same ideas surrounding personal development, improving ourselves, pushing ourselves, a lot of the same ideas on mental toughness and building grit, and also a lot of the same ideas on coaching. Which makes for a really fun idea when you feel like someone else kind of understands where you're coming from. But important things to note with Dawn is I really enjoyed her definition of mental toughness. She has a very specific key indicating factor in her definition of mental toughness that I think everyone should really pay attention to. But we also get into some coaching tips and tricks and like rest timing and timing your rest and other things that you can do to build more grit, be more intense, and become a better human and also a better athlete. So take notes, enjoy this podcast, but without any further ado, here is Dawn Fletcher from Mentality WOD. All right, Dawn, super pumped to have you back on the Betterhumanology podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and throw this out here right now. So we had Dawn on, we've actually had her on 2 times before. One time, back in the day, should I say, and then more recently, but I jacked up, or somehow in production, the audio file got jacked up. So I pulled the episode down, and I wanted to have Dawn back on because we always have great conversation. It's a lot of fun. So she's back, and I don't even remember what I asked her last time, so it's going to be a completely different interview than it ever is. So welcome back. Super pumped to have you. But we're going to start with some challenges, if that's cool with you.
Sounds good.
They're all on you. All right. So what is, could you give our listeners a fitness challenge this week?
400 meters burpee broad jumps.
Oh, yeah.
For time.
That sounds awesome. I used to do that when I was a physical training leader in the Air Force. We would do that, and there's no way to cheat it. You can either do a big jump, and you're like, okay, well, that was a lot of effort, or you can do a little jump, but then you're doing a lot of burpees. So that's awesome.
You know what? I think I realized that I have not done that, so it's kind of a cop-out. But this week I'll do it. I'll tag you and make sure that I'm doing what I say others should do.
Perfect. All right, mental toughness challenge for everybody.
3 days social media free. So taking all apps off your phone, not even accessing them on your computer, and just totally doing a 72-hour detox.
That sounds epic. Yeah, it's hard. You can get addicted to those little things, little red notifications and whatnot. It's good,
right.
It's good to cut that out.
I think that would be challenging for most people. Yeah.
3 days for sure. Yeah, that'd be intense, I think, for a lot of people. All right, how about a book recommendation for everybody?
I think I mentioned this last time, but I thought it would maybe be something that people haven't heard of in the past. Happiness, or what is the book title? Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking.
Okay, awesome.
Something like that. I'll have to send you the actual title, but damn it. Basically, it's about being positive for people who can't stand the whole positive thinking genre. Right.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing you're one of the types who's not a huge fan of just pure positive thinking.
Well, it's just not totally realistic.
Right.
I think there's other ways to look at things that are realistic and optimistic at the same time. But just pretending things are all good all the time is I don't think it's most people's experience.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think being positive maybe in a negative situation could help you have a different perspective, but it doesn't actually change your situation. You have to still take some action or do something. All right. So that is fitness challenge, mental toughness challenge book recommendation. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, could you give us a little bit of background, who you are, what you do, and all that jazz?
Basically, I help highly driven, motivated individuals who most often are CrossFitters achieve their goals. So most people know me for the work I do on mentalitywod.com, which is mental training tips and mindset development tips for the driven individual. I'm a CrossFit coach. I've been coaching CrossFit for over 8 years now, so been in the game for a while, and I'm most passionate about helping people who are really driven, really excited about a goal, perform their best. And to me, it's about developing yourself as an athlete, but also as a person, and just taking yourself to the next level across the board.
And what led you to go down the Mentality WOD route? Why did you think that it's so important to focus on the mental side of things?
Personally, I've always just been interested in psychology and, trying to learn about why we do the things that we do. But ever since I was in fitness and sport in high school, in playing sports in college, and then becoming a personal trainer, a fitness director, working in strength and conditioning, started to work in CrossFit, I just kept realizing that, the biggest factor in someone being successful or not was their mindset, and how much there was a lack of information out there for people to understand, like, what do I do about it? Am I just stuck with the mindset that I have, or how can I improve certain factors with how I think and what my habits are, so that I can actually improve in the gym and improve in my relationships, improve in my work life. And I wanted to start creating basically a website with all the knowledge and the experience that I had learned and that I had found help my clients, and just begin to share it, because I just felt like there wasn't a resource out there. There wasn't a quality resource out there for helping people understand the power of their minds and that they could actually train it.
I agree. I think that when I first started kind of studying and trying to learn more about mental toughness and improving your mindset, there's a lot of literature out there for golfers and like tennis players and stuff like that, and not a lot of team sports. And then there are the former Navy SEALs who have this ridiculous amount of grit, who are going to tell you how they did it, even though they had no real process. They just ended up
like toughen up.
You're right, yeah. And so it is very challenging to find a good resource. But likewise, I do think that, you said you're primarily coaching in CrossFit. There's not a lot of information on mental toughness or grit in team sports. Like, while I think it's necessary, it's not really out there. It seems that anything that's going to be individualized, like I mentioned, like tennis or golf, there's a lot of information on that. CrossFit is a very individualized sport. Mental toughness is so important. Why do you think that is?
I think that often mental toughness is thrown around, like you were saying, whether it's, people from a military background, even coaches, and we've grown up with people telling us, you just have to toughen up, and you'll be a better athlete. And so I think that word is just like overused, and people maybe don't quite understand, what does that really mean? Mental strength and mental toughness, like you were talking about grit, the ability to persevere through tough stuff, whether that's in training or in life or in the military, that is one aspect of mental training, having grit, having perseverance, having mental toughness and mental strength. So yeah, it's important, because we're going to continue facing hard situations in life, whether we want that or not, and we're going to continue, if we want to excel in our sport, we're going to continue getting ourselves to the point where we're fresh, really hard, really tired, because we want to be pushing that threshold. So, that's why it's so important, because to be your best in any type of sport, in any type of athletics, you want to get yourself to that brink, to that point where you're not quite sure if you can keep going, or you're not quite sure you're going to be successful, And so what do you do in the face of that adversity is really important. And then the carryover for life, that we're going to continue facing really tough situations in our personal lives, and again, how do we respond to them? What are our tools for managing those situations, and how do we actually flourish through tough situations? So mental strength is one component of it, and it is really important, but there is a lot of other pieces of mental training that I feel like haven't yet caught on. People haven't caught on to how important it is to have composure, or how important it is, to set yourself up with mental prep strategies, or to practice reflecting on seasons past or certain parts of your athletic career so that you can actually gain learning lessons. There's a lot of different aspects that just haven't been communicated as well.
And what role do you find discipline playing in developing mental strategies or becoming better as a competitor?
Well, huge, because we don't realize the benefit of something until we actually give it a shot, right? Just like any habits, like make a commitment, create a discipline around something so that you can actually see what the rewards are. So if it was a daily discipline that you committed to for 2 weeks, then you could tell if it was working or not. Then you could tell what the benefits were or not. So, the commitment and the accountability and the discipline to try something and really put full effort into it, then make a decision on if that's going to be a habit or a strategy that you continue to use.
Yeah, and there's sometimes, it can go in both directions. Sometimes people don't try long enough, right? Like they don't stick with something long enough. And then conversely, and I think it's a little more scary, is you could stick with something for too long that's not really useful. Maybe you have an overwhelming amount of grit and sticking power, but you're doing something that you just shouldn't be doing. You talked about reflection a little bit. I think that it would be wise to look back at your daily disciplines and reflect. But how do you have athletes do that? You said that's kind of a missing piece that people aren't doing. Is that like a exercise you walk them through or coach them through? How does that work?
Definitely. The athletes I coach and work with one-on-one, we do a lot of that together just in our communication and talking about like their day or their training session, or if they just finished an event like regionals. We do a lot of reflection each day about what worked, what didn't work, what did we learn from, how can we get better. But the daily practice is just keeping like a training journal or training notebook. And I have the athlete keep that all on a Google document so that I can see each day, what were your takeaways? Like what were your learning lessons, and what did you do well? Like what were your positives? So each day they're naming at least 1 to 2 positives and at least 1 to 2 learning lessons or takeaways. So that really helps you get in a frame of mind of there were no mistakes. I either learned or I did something well. And if you can practice that type of thinking, every day is going to be a win. And it doesn't mean that every day you knocked it out of the park and you PR'd. It just means you either learned or you implemented something that was helpful. And that's what we look for every single day. And we continue to build on that. The athlete continues to feel like they're evolving, growing, developing. And that's what's most important.
That's awesome. So it's kind of like a electronic journaling process.
Yep.
And Is that something that you do yourself as well?
It is. I'm not as detailed as the athletes I'm working with that are training like 6 hours a day. I keep my journal notes for my workouts, but then every single day at the end of the day, I'm just reflecting on like, how did I spend my time? Am I moving in the direction that is aligned with my values? Was there anything in here that I could do better or maybe learn from? So I think by starting off with a habit of journaling, it kind of ingrains that in your like thought practices so that it becomes more natural for you to just be comfortable with reflection and then be comfortable kind of analyzing yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's often lost. I mean, we could just get busy and avoid doing basically anything. You could live from birth till death just being busy, if you're not careful.
Being distracted.
Yeah, being distracted, earning money here and there just enough to get along, and then, one day it's all over. It's a crazy world. And
that's like my biggest fear. So I probably try to do anything I can to make sure I'm not going through the motions and doing errands and paying bills, because it freaks me out, that I don't want that to be my existence.
Yeah. And I know we've had this conversation a few times, but I can't remember which one we recorded, which one's not. But You and I both kind of follow that, like 1 to 3 things a day, right? Like that's what we want to accomplish. And so is that something that you start the day off with, kind of like reflecting like, okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve. So here's my 1 to 3 things. And then you get after it. That way everything else is kind of, you don't have to be fearful of like, oh crap, I just wasted that entire day. Is that a common practice for you?
It is. And I think we talked about this before too, that, I use the notepad on my phone, just have like a running to-do list that is like today, soon, later. So I kind of organize it in priorities about which things I want to do that day. And then the list is normally, like you said, 2 to 3 things. And then what I do is put them into my calendar. So they're actually like action items, like, okay, at noon, I'm going to do this one to-do list item. But I, again, have practiced now not getting so caught up in that productivity equals joy.
Right.
And that, I have to just check things off my list in order for me to feel good or successful, because I've gotten really caught up in that in the past. And that just creates more stress or anxiety that, the day is all about to-do list items. So I try to be mindful that it's like, a few things each day, plug them in there, attack them, but then make sure you have like free time to not be so list oriented. And I try to create that balance for myself.
Speaking of balance, I've follow you on Instagram. Everyone else, go follow Dawn on Instagram. What's your handle?
My personal one is Dawn M Fletcher, but Mentality _WOD.
Awesome.
Most.
So follow both of those. But I noticed, I think it's kind of recently you've been out in nature, it seems. Maybe that's part of the balancing act. Could you talk about that a little bit more? Do you find it important to go unplug and do cool stuff, or was it just part of your schedule? Like what do you have like a routine about that?
No, that's just for me, what I know is the most restorative, the most rejuvenating thing I can do is just be outside doing something fun or just doing nothing at all. So it's just a part of my life. Like I spend time every day, outside, just messing around or even just relaxing, because I know that that's what helps me stay in the most relaxed mindset. It helps me feel most restored versus just being inside, being on my computer. Like when you run a business through the internet, like we both do, and we're on social media and we have a platform that we at points benefit from being plugged in with. I just try to be really mindful of shutting down, turning off, going outside and doing the best I can at making sure I'm not just totally tied to my work.
I think that's a good practice. Something I don't do as much of. I think this might be an excuse, but it's because I live in Texas, and
I was gonna say, when it's 75 and sunny all the time, it's kind of hard to stay inside.
Yeah. I'm fixing that soon. I won't be here very much longer. All right. So I do want to ask, because I think that you have a very interesting approach. We could call it self-development. We could call it just being a human being, whatever you want to call it. But you mentioned earlier that you think it's very important to improve as an athlete, but also to improve as a person. Let's talk about the person side of things, because you're someone who constantly wants to get better. I guess 2-part question. Why do you think it's important to get better? And that might seem like a silly question, but I think it's worth asking. Why do you think it's important to get better? And also, in what ways do you strive to get better?
Again, I think getting better is different for everybody. And depending on what specific goals you have or what your specific values are and where you are at that point in your life, it looks a little different to everybody. It may not be about just achieving and accomplishing. It may be about giving things up, surrendering, slowing down. And that may be the number one thing that can improve your life. So I think we often think of getting better as just like accomplishing, and achieving and accumulating the next thing. And to me, that most of the time going to get better. Oftentimes it's about just maybe taking a deeper look at yourself. And one of the first questions I'd like to ask people is, what do you think you could eliminate or cut down on to feel at more peace, to have more peace in your life? And so sometimes it's really taking a deeper look about what can I do less of and what can I have less of, and taking a different approach to it. So that's another topic, but essentially I think that as humans, we want to continue to feel like we're evolving in some sense. And I think at different points in our life, that's going to require different strategies. For me personally, I want to gain as much experiences as I can. Like the things that I know help me just feel alive. Whether it's doing something new, it's doing something different, it's trying a new experiment, it's putting myself out there in a new way. I know that living like that, again, is going to help me feel the most passionate, joyful. It's going to help me be the best coach. It's going to help me, in my other roles, feel like I'm giving my best to those people or to whatever I am involved in.
And how about getting better as an athlete? Because there's the very obvious sense of 5 more pounds on the bar, 5 seconds faster on this Metcon or this mile. And that has a lot to do with effort and programming and all of that. But how else do you work on yourself or coach those you have in getting better as an athlete?
We talk a lot about doing things that are uncomfortable for you. And of course, that means getting yourself physically uncomfortable, right? And pushing yourself to your limits where, you may get no rep, or you may fail. You may, come up to that place where you actually can't continue. So pushing your thresholds physically, but then also implementing training strategies that are going to help you be uncomfortable mentally. So if you are somebody who is, maybe gets frustrated when you get no rep, or you're somebody who gets annoyed whenever the heat times change or the weather's different or whatever, all these different factors that can impact your mindset, which then impacts your physical performance. We implement strategies in training to help that person face discomfort. The more regularly you can face the things that are uncomfortable for you, the better you're going to be at adapting efficiently. So the first step is awareness, asking the person, like, what's something you hate in training, or what's something that really bothers you? When do you get flustered? When do you get upset or bothered? And then you talk about ways that you can implement those situations or those kind of training environments to help the person practice handling discomfort.
And is there any commonalities you've seen amongst all the athletes you've coached in maybe a mental weakness or something, a lot of them need to work on, or you work with all of your athletes on a specific thing?
Yeah, one of the big things is composure. Our sport of CrossFit, we preach a lot about intensity, right? Like the more intensity you can bring, the more success you're going to have. Just go hard, just push harder, just get it done quicker. So the sport, and I think the type of person the sport attracts is an intense personality. A really driven, motivated person who wants to push themselves, and then often ends up thinking that the best way to get results is just push harder. And so that is the type of person I'm mostly working with. And so one of the common themes we work on is the ability to be composed. Because what we're finding in our sport, and if you've been watching it for a while or studying it or involved in it, you see that the composed athlete is the one who wins most often, not the person who can just push the hardest. And so sometimes those are on opposite ends of the spectrum, but people can learn to push hard and maintain composure, and that's where the real beauty is, because you're going to again be able to handle yourself whenever the pressure's on, whenever the expectations are high, whenever the guy next to you starts pulling away. How do you stick to your plan and stay composed and still push your intensity?
It's kind of like the slow is smooth, smooth is fast type,
Yeah.
Like that composed intensity. I think that's definitely a learned skill, and I could see why you'd have to, or a skill that needs to be practiced. I could see why you'd have to work on that with most athletes, because most people are not in any position to, no one's born, well, maybe to a certain level, but no one's born just being able to handle themselves under extreme amounts of pressure. It's something that needs to be practiced. And do you put them in any sort of situation, or is it like talking them through mental strategies, positive self-talk, or whatever during exercise? How do you help people maintain their composure while bringing the intensity?
Yeah, so most of the athletes I work with, it's it's through like FaceTime and Skype. So I watch a lot of their videos and I give them feedback. But it's really about having them watch themselves and understand like your facial expressions, your body language, your breathing. What are you doing during rest or during your transitions and workouts? And so again, bringing some awareness to them about what does composure look like and how can you act or how can you respond, even if you're feeling like, oh shit, I'm going to die, right? But keeping like a relaxed facial expression and still keeping your breathing nice and rhythmic, being really consistent with how you rest during your transitions and during your rest breaks. So practicing the ability to physically maintain composure, and again, showing them what that looks like and what that doesn't look like, giving them some examples, and then we practice it. We practice things like, say, for example, you're going to do a workout like DT, and you wait, and I have the athlete wait until the 5th round until they can show like the grit on their face, until they can start making noises, until they can start to like grunt and hang over the bar. Like for the first 4 rounds, you're going to be like smooth and steady, breathing, staying right, no more than 1 step away from the bar, like timing their rest periods, and just seeing if they can stay like super relaxed and composed. And then the 5th round, just go for it. So with different practices and different strategies, just kind of monitoring themselves and their emotional intensity during workouts and training. And again, the better you do that and the more consistently you do that in training, the easier it is to know what level you want to be at in competition.
Something interesting, this is kind of a side note, but you mentioned you time rest periods.
Yep.
That's very interesting. I think it's very cool too. Are you looking to, well, I'll just let you talk about it. Why do you time rest periods?
Because say, for example, someone's like, oh, I'm going to do like these 20 burpee box jump overs as fast as I can, right? And they're like a little rabbit and they just like drop and hop over, drop and hop over. And then the next thing they have to do is wall balls. But between the burpee box jumpers box jump overs that they do so quickly and the wall balls, they're resting a minute with their hands on their legs bent over. And then they get into their wall balls and they're doing like small sets of 10, right? It's like, was it worth it to just knock that movement out of the park as fast as you could just because you can and then have to rest a minute? Or would it have been better to maybe slow your rate down by about 20-30 seconds so that you only had to rest 10 seconds in your transition, you could get right into the big sets of wall balls? So it's a lot about learning where the athlete is tempted to push their pace because they can, and then seeing, well, how did that benefit you? What was your rest then for the next round? How much did your pace fall off per round each set? How much slower was the second half of that workout than the first half? So just learning pacing strategies, and a lot of that, it's really easy to just kind of time the person's transition or rest. And it's funny, if you do like an 8-minute workout and you show the athlete you rested for 4 minutes during that workout, then they're like, their eyes are just totally open, like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was like dying and I was pushing the whole time. Like, I actually sat here with the timer and timed your rest, and you rested for 4 minutes during an 8-minute workout. Like, what if we could cut down that rest by a minute, let alone 2 minutes? And, you show them how quickly you can reduce their score, but it's actually by moving slower. It's not by moving faster. It's by moving slower and resting less. And then they're just like mind blown, like, I don't know. You start there. You just start with analyzing video, and you teach the strategies that as a coach you're looking for after spending so much time in the sport and watching videos and watching other athletes and watching, who's successful and not and why. You want to start to teach the athletes so that they can understand and learn it themselves.
And the reason I find that so interesting, my ears kind of perked up, is I've worked on athletes with rest timing as well, but I originally just started doing it because when I first started into CrossFit, I was doing exactly what you said, but I was catching myself. I had an overwhelming amount of intensity anytime I would do a CrossFit workout. So I would just go as hard as I could, and then I'm sitting there like about to do box jumps or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, resting. I'm like, you're resting a lot. Like, you should be moving. And so then I just started timing only my rests. And I was like, I'm not going to time how long a workout takes me until I can do a workout without stopping. And so then I just started timing rest times only. And so what I would do is anytime I wanted to take a break, if I felt like it was warranted, I would start the stopwatch on, I'd rest and be, okay, back at it. And it's like, okay, that workout was a 23-second, Metcon, because that's how long it took me to rest until eventually I could go, like you're saying, slow and smooth, but as much intensity as I could bring without resting or having to stop. And I really do think that adds a whole different level to your training, not only just physically, but mentally. It being able to, like you said, that composure is so necessary.
And I think this is something that's most common with really the higher level CrossFitters, are those who already have the motivation and drive to push, but they think that the only way to get the work done is to go all out, or, to be as intense as possible for the duration of the workout. So that's not, everyone can benefit from learning composure, but a lot of people at the beginning of CrossFit, after we get them integrated with mechanics and consistency, we do want to help them push their intensity and learn about what that looks like and how that feels. And, again, get yourself to the point where you have to rest, because then, like you're, again, kind of pushing that threshold, and you're learning your intensity levels. So the different parts during your career and during your experience with training, it's really imperative to just practice different strategies. I love what you said about timing your rest. I think a lot of athletes could benefit from doing that, just for like a couple weeks. Just review your videos and time your rest, and analyze yourself from that perspective.
Yeah, and I think combining that with just like I would have to like actually see the data on it, because I've never recorded any sort of exertion or heart rate with it. But I would guarantee, just from an energy system training standpoint, that would be ultimately better for an athlete. I think they would progress more than this weird downward sloping intensity CrossFit Metcon, which most people that's how most people tackle it. And when you do get to like a plateau or whatever, that's probably the next step, I would think. All right.
Agreed.
So I want to ask you the book question, and it's not a book recommendation. Did we get to this one last time? So you might already. Okay. So say there's a nationwide curriculum implemented. And the president calls you up. He's like, Dawn, you're going to be responsible for one chapter of this book, and every single child in America will have to read your chapter and be tested on and pass before they can graduate high school. So what would your chapter be about?
Oh, goodness. At this point in time, I'd have to say it'd have to be about kindness and actually, again, what that looks like and how to cultivate kindness, and specifically to people who are different than you, and reaching out to and befriending and taking care of those who are different than you and who may seem like they're outcast or they're struggling, and teaching our kids and our youth how to be kind and actually what that looks like and how to practice kindness. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I can't think of anything that's more important right now in our world.
No, I love this question because I could be talking to a world-class coach like yourself, or a doctor, and you think that they're going to answer in some way related to their field. But like I had a doctor of physical therapy tell me that people should work on personal finances. Like he would teach, and and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, because he said that was the huge missing piece of like his growing up, and he had to learn a lot of stuff the hard way, and he thinks it would be really great. So why you said at this point in time, kindness would be what you would teach people. Is there any reason why you find that important right now?
To me, it seems like our world's a mess, and I know that's dependent on how much news you're watching or how plugged in you are to current events. But I feel like kindness is totally something that isn't taught and isn't practiced. And it just seems like it's like totally missing in our society, with people just in their own zone, doing what they're going to do, or just worried about themselves, and really just not taking the time to be kind to those around them, and to maybe seek after those people who are neglected or oppressed or on the streets, and just really extending an arm and extending kindness to those people. And I can't think of anything that would heal our society and heal our world more than that. Because I think once you receive kindness, you want to give it out. And so it could just be this ripple effect of how much power we have as humans to just be able to take care of one another.
I think that's great. All right, I want to go back to kind of mental toughness as a whole, because you mentioned that the word may be overused, and a lot of people look at it in different ways, and we kind of touched on it, but it made me want to cover it in a little bit more detail. And I wanted to get kind of it doesn't have to be like a concrete definition, but your take on mental toughness in its entirety.
Mental toughness, the ability to persevere and even flourish through tough situations. I think it's as specific to that when I talk about mental toughness, mental strength, or grit. So there's a lot of different ways you can achieve that, but to me, specifically, mental toughness is just about, again, teaching yourself to not only get through something that's uncomfortable, but also, can I thrive? That's the level that I'm going for, and that's the level that I'm working towards with the athletes and the people that I try to influence. Like, I don't want you just to get through something. I want you to be able to thrive in it, find meaning and find purpose in it, and use that situation that may be terrible. Again, whether it's in training, competition, life, but pull some value from it so that you can actually thrive in spite of it and during it.
I think that's a very important kind of asterisk to your definition, because some people could see mental toughness as just, well, you got through it, you just barely yep, I got through it, never want to do it again. Most fun I never want to have again. You hear that phrase sometimes, but you want people to flourish or thrive in these difficult situations. I think, could you mentioned it a little bit there, like finding purpose and meaning, but could you talk about that a little bit more? Why it's important, and maybe how you could help someone in a difficult situation thrive?
How it's important, once you realize that discomfort and challenge is actually what helped you become the person you are today. Discomfort and challenge is what helps the best athletes in the world become who they are. So you can learn to appreciate challenge. Like, immediately when we're uncomfortable, we might be like, oh shit, I don't like this, right? We kind of just our immediate response, our immediate reaction, I should say, is I don't like this. Whether I feel anxiety, whether I feel stress, whether I feel fear, we can learn to respond to that reaction of, oh God, I don't like this. We can learn to respond to that with, this may be good for me. This may be helpful for me. I can get better because of this. So learning to appreciate the challenge, learning to appreciate discomfort, and actually seeking it. I think by seeking it, we put an entirely different spin on discomfort and challenge, because we actually are going after it. We actually want it, and we can start to build that habit and that mindset in ourselves of bring it on. It's coming anyways. Like in life and in training, we're going to get uncomfortable. So why not begin to seek it regularly so that you're almost the one in charge?
And it kind of reminds me of the book, The Obstacle is the Way. And, rooted in Stoicism primarily is just, the obstacle is the path, it is the way. Find hard stuff and then just go for it, as opposed to be like, I'm going to try and skirt around this or not do it. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and a very great definition of mental toughness. The thrive part is what makes it. The flourish part is what makes it, because it's not just the ability to endure something that sucks. It's really finding meaning and purpose in that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I like that. That's why I like the term mental strength more. Again, I feel like mental toughness is all about just getting through it, and toughening up or being tough through something. And I don't think that's the best message for our youth athletes, just toughen up and get through it.
Yeah.
But mental strength, sometimes it takes strength to say no, or takes strength to actually stop doing something, or takes, a different type of strength to decide when it's maybe not worth pushing through anymore. And so I just feel like mental strength is just a stronger word, and it maybe steers people away from just thinking oh, I just got to toughen up. Because
Right.
no, you don't necessarily just have to toughen up, but if you really want to, you can find strength and you can find meaning and purpose, and you can again thrive through the situation. And when we teach that, it just puts it a way more positive spin on it.
And likewise, I talk a lot about mental toughness, and in recent, let's say over the last 2 years, I have tried to make distinguish, what some people think it is, because some people are like, you never quit a workout, or maybe a high pain tolerance would be something that is associated with mental toughness, and that's not what I'm talking about. Because to be honest, if I'm in the middle of an intense workout and my shoulder is feeling pretty off, and because I've injured my shoulder before, guess what? I just quit the workout. Yep. I am quitting the workout because there's no sort of grit or mental toughness that I'm going to be like, haha, proved it. But now I, got to sit out for 6 weeks because I pushed it too far. And a lot of people kind of thought that's what I was saying. And I'm like, no, right. Dude, I'll quit a workout right now. If I'm going to get injured, like, done, I quit. Like, yep. Is that bad? Like, am I a quitter? No, it's, I'm being smart about my training. And,
right.
It's the same with, I give the example a lot of time of holding your hand in a bucket of ice. It's like, who can do it the longest? It's like, that's not mental toughness either. This is some arbitrary pain tolerance that you could have been born with, but still doesn't help you get through life over the next 5 years. Their real ability to be mentally tough. And I think that it's important that if you're going to be talking about the topic, you have to distinguish what we mean. And I think you do an excellent job at that. So what are you working on in your own personal development right now?
Oh, let's see. Quite a few things. What direction do we want to go with? I just learned/taught myself how to surf this summer, and that had been a goal for mine. I just had not dedicated the consistent, like, I'm going to go every week for X amount of weeks, and I did that this summer, and I finally got up, and it was even more awesome than I thought it would be. That was a big thing for me, because I've lived in Southern California for 9 years. I'm like, I cannot believe I still have not like actually surfed a wave, and I love the water and I love being out there. So this summer finally made that happen. So that's just kind of a fun thing. But personally, I'm really working on what we just talked about, is just putting myself in more uncomfortable situations and kind of having fun with it. Like, I just recently made a list of, I think, like 20 things that would be really uncomfortable or new for me to do. And I'm just going to start doing them one by one. I'm going to hopefully create some videos around them and encourage other people to do the same through my website and the program I offer on Mentality WOD. But just attacking things that for me are new, different, uncomfortable, outside of my comfort zone, and just trying to continue to gain like fun experiences with trying new things.
That's great. And you said you have a list of 20. Would you mind giving us at least one? Or two.
I think I just put these on my social media a couple weeks ago. So this stuff is like, other people would think this is really crazy, but for me, it's like, once you've done a lot of challenges, you need to push yourself even more than the average person. So, I have on there like pose nude for an art class, and again, that's not something that would be really uncomfortable for me. I'd be pretty comfortable with that, but I think it would just be a new way to like experience something different. Just be naked in front of people who are drawing you.
Yeah. That's getting out of the comfort zone a little bit.
I had like just lay in a bath full of some kind of critters, whether it's like spiders or like snakes or leeches or something like that. Again, that stuff doesn't super bother me, but I say that having not done that before. So I think it'd be a cool experiment to just try, like spending a couple minutes just with some type of insect or critter just all over your body.
If you combine,
I think you would see your fear factor.
If you combine those two, it becomes the worst case possible. Lay nude in a bathtub with a bunch of critters. Yeah. That's a whole different level right there.
Maybe once I do both of those two things, that would be a third level.
Yeah, that's the
so just stuff like that. I mean, there's also things on there that aren't quite that extreme, but like recently, just experimenting with ice baths and cold showers and doing things like social media detoxes, fasting, just practicing different things that most people would say are a little bit physically uncomfortable or a little bit even emotionally, mentally uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time, but you really have to find out what makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because or else you're really just kind of working in your strengths and not really improving. So if you're the type who can murder a Metcon and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go do another fast Metcon. It's like, well, congratulations. That's like what you love to do, you know?
Yep.
But like giving a speech in front of 10,000 people might be completely different. You know, that might be like, destroy the Metcon murderer. So I do think it's important to do things that make you uncomfortable. Do you think that because we talk about this in athletic performance, is the transference, like the ability for front squats to make you better at thrusters and so on. Do you feel that things like you're doing help you better as an athlete, being more mentally tough maybe as an athlete, but also as a person?
100%, absolutely. And that's why, again, I think when you talk about mental training in athletics and performance in CrossFit, you can't just neglect the mindset development or personal development aspect. You know, they go hand in hand 100%. Just like if you get more comfortable doing Metcons, doing things that are uncomfortable in training, you're going to probably feel more comfortable taking on specific challenges in your workplace. If you push yourself in your daily life and your personal life, because again, we're going to get stress put on us by things that we don't expect or that we don't want, but that's different. You know, that's like life stuff that happens that we can't control. We're not seeking that. So it's a very different mindset to actually seek after discomfort in your daily life, just by even fun, silly things. But something as simple as looking at like the conversations you're avoiding in your life. If you're someone who's really aware, like, wow, I've been avoiding that, I'm going to go for it. Like today I'm having that conversation, you know, then you're again, setting yourself up to be more comfortable, seeking challenge, embracing discomfort, and not avoiding the things that are potentially in your way, from keeping you having just a more kind of free mindset.
I think that's great. All right, we're going to move to the quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Oh, goodness. I hope so.
What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
I forget what I said last time, but what still resonates with me is the hardest thing I've ever done is like a 7K trail race, basically straight up a mountain. I remember crossing the finish line and just like almost vomiting, being like, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. All I kept saying was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Like legs are just total jelly. And on the way down, you can't even resist it. Like I wanted to win and there was a girl right in front of me and I did pass her, but I had to be totally like, just turn off the switch of, oh, you might fall, and just be like, yeah, I'm most likely going to fall if I just let myself go down this rocky hill, like almost straight down. And after going up the hill, your legs are just totally shot. So I just remember finishing it feeling terrible.
Yeah, that's people. If no one's ever done any sort of like elevation change in their run or in a run or something, I highly recommend you go give it a shot. I was just in Colorado a few weeks ago, and I hadn't worked out for a couple days, and I was like, I was with my family, my mother-in-law was there, my kids, my wife, and I was like, hey guys, can you just drop me off over by this mountain? Like, you guys can like go get Starbucks or something. I'm gonna do a very, very quick workout. All I'm gonna do is run up until I can't run anymore, and then I'm gonna come back down. Not acclimated to the elevation at all. I mean, I think here at Texas, I sit at like, I don't know, 200 feet, you know, and we were at like 8,000 and I was running to 10,000. And that was what I ended up, I ran 2,000, climbed 2,000 meters before I just couldn't anymore. But my lungs were burning the entire time. My legs were barely moving. I got multiple times throughout, like towards the end, I was like, yeah, you're going to throw up. You're for sure going to throw up. Like that's going to happen. And then eventually I just got to the point where I couldn't move anymore. And I was like,
yep.
I had to sit down for like a solid 10 minutes because I did think I was going to throw up, and then I just walked down, and that was like the workout for the day. But elevation, I can't imagine doing a 7K, you know, run like that. It's just that had to have been brutal.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself like, no matter what, I'm not going to stop running, no matter what. Yeah, like quarter mile in, you're walking. You know, it's like shit. that didn't work out, but if you can just walk a little faster than the person next to you, or just, continue to jog or run whenever you can. But yeah, it keeps things fun for sure.
All right. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Writing down 10 to 20 things that you wouldn't normally do, or that would be uncomfortable for you, and doing one of those things every week until the list is done.
Perfect. If you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It's a kettlebell, probably 35-pound kettlebell.
I like that answer. All right. The question of the show: what is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? And this is 100% open-ended.
Chase experiences, continue to try new things, put yourself out there, sign up for things that are different for you, say yes when people ask you to do something weird or crazy or funny or different, and just continue to gather as many different experiences as you can in your life.
All right, Dawn. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in where they can learn more. So what's the best place for people to do that? Check out your products, services, everything. Where can people go to do that?
MentalityWOD.com is the best place to see everything I'm involved with, and on my Instagram, mentality_WOD.
All right, and I will link to that in the show notes. Either way, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate your time today.
Awesome, Jared. Thank you so much.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.